I need to withdraw my partnership support for the Hayes Morrison wedding. 7 words. 47 seconds on the phone. My sister's $40,000 dream wedding vaporized while I sat at my kitchen table watching my 8-year-old son eat chicken nuggets shaped like dinosaurs, completely unaware that I'd just detonated every relationship I'd ever had to keep him safe. The venue spoke at the coordinator's voice went careful, professional. Miss Patterson, are you certain? The wedding is in 6 weeks. Miss Hayes has already, I'm certain. Send the documentation. I'll sign today. I hung up. Thomas looked up at me, ketchup on his chin, and asked if he could have more juice. I poured it. My hands didn't shake. That's what 3 years of hindsight tells me I should have noticed. My hands were perfectly steady as I ended my family. That was 72 hours after my sister, Catherine, sat across from me in her living room, surrounded by bridal magazines and fabric swatches, and said 5 words that made the choice simple. He'd ruined the photos. She meant my son. She meant Thomas. She meant the port wine birthmark that covers the left side of his face like spilled wine. The mark he was born with. The mark that makes strangers' smiles die mid-expression. The mark that his own aunt decided was an aesthetic problem she had every right to solve by erasing him from the most important day of her life. 3 years later, I still don't know if I'm a hero or a monster. My nephew Edward is 13 now. At family Thanksgivings I'm not invited to anymore. He tells people I'm Aunt Monster, the woman who destroyed his mother's wedding, because she couldn't handle being told no. My sister Catherine hasn't said my name out loud in 197 days. My mother calls once a month to ask if I've come to my senses and stopped punishing everyone over something that wasn't even that big of a deal, excluding a child from his own family because his face doesn't photograph well wasn't that big of a deal. But here's what nobody tells you about protecting your child. Sometimes the only way to save them is to destroy everyone else. Sometimes love means choosing one person over an entire family. Sometimes you have to burn it all down so thoroughly that there's nothing left to exclude your son from. I made that choice. I live with it every single day, in a house that's quieter than it should be, in a life where half the people who used to call don't anymore, where my father meets me at a diner 2 towns over because being seen with me in public would cost him his place at the family table. Thomas is 11 now, he's safe. He'll never see the family group chat where my mother's sister typed, "He's sweet," but the photos, though, with a sad face emoji. He'll never know the woman who taught him to swim when he was 4 decided. 2 years later, his birthmark made him unworthy of standing beside her. At her wedding, he'll never read the text where Catherine's maid of honor wrote, "Can't you just Photoshop him?" I saved him from knowing that the price was everyone's else. This is the story of one phone call, one sister, one impossible choice, and the 3 years of silence that followed. There are no clean endings here. There's no moment where everyone realizes they were wrong and apologizes. There's just a decision I made in 47 seconds that fractured a family permanently, and a question I ask myself every single morning. Was there any other way? I still don't have an answer. Welcome back to the final chapter, where ordinary people make impossible choices that change everything. And before you decide whether I'm the hero or the villain, I need you to understand something. Catherine wasn't always the person who said those 5 words. Catherine was my best friend. We shared a bedroom for 18 years. She held me when Thomas's father walked out. She loved my son for years before his face became a problem. That's why destroying her wedding didn't feel like justice. It felt like cutting off my own arm to stop the bleeding. You do it because the alternative is worse. You live with the phantom pain forever. Catherine and I slept in twin beds 3 feet apart for 18 years. We knew each other the way you know your own heartbeat. When I was 16, Jason Reeves broke my heart in the parking lot after homecoming. Catherine found me crying in my car at midnight and held me for 2 hours while I sobbed into her shoulder. When she was 19 and failed her nursing exam, I drove 4 hours with ice cream and read to her until she laughed again. When I found out I was pregnant at 28, unmarried and terrified Catherine was the first person I called. She showed up at 6 in the morning with prenatal vitamins and grocery money. When Thomas's father walked out of the hospital 2 hours after our son was born, Catherine stayed. She stayed through the terrifying NICU weeks. She stayed through sleepless nights when I was so exhausted I'd cry while making bottles. She stayed when I ran out of money, hope, everything except fear. She held Thomas while I showered. She bought diapers when my account hit 0. She sang him lullabies and he'd go quiet in her arms the way he never did for anyone else. For the first 3 years of Thomas's life, he had 2 mothers. One who gave birth to him, one who showed up at 3 in the morning and never asked for credit. That was Catherine. That was my sister. That was the woman I destroyed. Thomas was born 7 weeks premature, 4 pounds 11 ounces. Small enough to fit in my 2 hands. The port wine birthmark wasn't visible at birth. It developed slowly over his first year. Capillaries that didn't form correctly, pooling blood beneath the skin, creating a stain that wouldn't fade. It started as a small pink spot on his left cheek at 3 months. By 6 months, it had spread to his jawline. By his first birthday, it covered a third of his face. Darkest crimson along his cheekbone, fading to rose pink near his ear. Doctors explained it was a vascular birthmark. Completely harmless, purely cosmetic. Could be treated with laser therapy when he was older. It wouldn't fade on its own. I didn't care. He was Thomas. He was perfect. He had his father's warm brown eyes and my stubborn chin, and a laugh that sounded like bubbles popping. The birthmark was just part of his face, the way freckles were part of mine. Catherine said she didn't care either. He's beautiful, she told me she'd... He's absolutely perfect. I believed her. Why wouldn't I? This was Catherine. She loved him. I believed that for years. I made excuses for the small things, the hairline cracks that appeared. So gradually I could explain each one away. Thomas was 4 when the first crack appeared. Catherine posted a photo of him and her daughter Lily playing at the park. They were on the swings, laughing, the sunlight golden and perfect. It stayed up for 6 hours. Then Catherine untagged herself. When I asked why, she said the lighting was bad. I look washed out. You know how afternoon sun is. I looked at the photo again later. Really looked. Thomas's birthmark was particularly vivid in the sunlight, dark crimson against pale skin. Lily looked like a catalogue child beside him. The contrast was stark. I told myself I was being paranoid. Catherine loved Thomas. She'd taught him to swim. People untag, unflattering photos all the time. The second crack came at Christmas when Thomas was 5. Catherine's holiday card showed her family in coordinated cream and soft grey. Beautiful. Perfect. I waited for the group shot with Thomas and me. It never came. When I asked, she explained, we did immediate family only this year. With the new baby, we wanted to keep it simple. But I smiled and said, of course, and tried not to notice that Catherine didn't share my card on social media. The third crack came at Thomas's 6th birthday party. I'd rented a trampoline park, invited all his friends and family. Catherine brought Lily and Edward. She stayed for the entire party. Except when it came time for photos. I gathered all the kids together. Catherine suddenly needed to take Edward to the bathroom. They stayed there for 25 minutes. When they came back, the photo moment had passed. I started seeing the pattern then. Catherine was there for Thomas, but never when cameras came out. She loved him, but from a careful distance when anyone was watching. I told myself it was coincidence. I told myself a lot of things because the alternative, that my sister was slowly distancing herself from him because of his face, was too painful to name. But then she got engaged. And then came the wedding planning. And then came the magazine moment that made everything impossible to ignore. It was a Sunday afternoon in October, 8 months before Catherine's wedding. She'd invited me over to finalise the wedding party. Catherine's living room looked like a bridal magazine had exploded. Fabric swatches covered the coffee table, photos of flower girls and ring bearers scattered across every surface. We talked about flowers, the DJ, her bachelorette party, and then she flipped to a page labelled the children. So for the processional kids, she said, Lily will be flower girl, obviously, and my friend Amanda's daughter Harper as second flower girl. I waited. She kept scrolling. And Thomas as ring bearer, I finally said. Catherine didn't look up. Actually, I'm thinking Tyler, Michael's nephew, for ring bearer. He's used to being in front of people. Something cold settled in my stomach. Thomas has been asking about being in your wedding for 6 months, Catherine. I know, and it's sweet. He practices walking slow in the living room. He asks me every week if you've picked his tuxedo yet, Joan. She looked at me with determined patience. I need the wedding party to be cohesive. I'm going for a really specific aesthetic. Thomas is your nephew, and I love him. But this is my wedding, and I've been planning it for 2 years, and I have a vision for how I want it to look. The children in the processional need to match. I'm hiring a photographer who shoots for Martha Stewart weddings. I need everything to be perfect. Match. The word hung in the air like smoke. What does that mean? Match? Catherine sighed. You know what it means, Joan. The visual needs to be cohesive. All the kids are going to be in ivory and blush. The photos need to look intentional, not random. Thomas can wear ivory and blush. It's not just about the clothes. She showed me a magazine spread of a wedding party. Everyone matching and beautiful and perfect. I want my wedding to look like this. Clean, elegant, everything coordinated. Say what you actually mean, Catherine. She set the phone down hard. Fine. His birthmark is very visible in photos. I've spent $20,000 on a photographer alone. I don't want to look back at my wedding photos for the next 50 years and have them look off. Off. That's the word she used. My 8-year-old son's face would make her wedding photos look off. I stood up. The room tilted slightly. You're saying Thomas would ruin your photos? Don't put words in my mouth, Joan. Then what are you saying? She stood too, hands fluttering, defensive. I'm saying, this is my wedding, mine and Michael's, and we get to decide who's in the wedding party. It's not personal, it's about aesthetics, about the vision we have for our day. Thomas can still come to the wedding. He just won't be in the processional. He's 8 years old, Catherine. He's your nephew. He loves you, and I love him. But love doesn't mean I have to put him in my wedding party when it conflicts with the vision I've been planning for years. This is one day. One single day that I want to be perfect. Is that really too much to ask? I looked at her. Really looked. This was the woman who'd held Thomas in hospital when he was too small to survive on his own, who'd sung him lullabies and called him her little buddy. And now she was telling me his face wasn't good enough for her photos. You taught him to swim, I said quietly. When he was 4. You remember that? Of course I remember. You held him on your hip at the grocery store when he was 2. You bought him his first bike. You've been there for everything. And now you're telling me he's not good enough to stand next to you for 5 minutes because his face might mess up your aesthetic? Her face hardened. That's not fair. None of this is fair. He's a child, your nephew, and you're excluding him because of how he looks. I'm excluding him because this is my wedding and I get to make choices about my own wedding. Her voice rose. Every bride gets to curate their wedding party. That's normal. That's allowed. And I'm not going to apologize for wanting my day to be beautiful. He is beautiful. You know what I mean, Joan? I do know what you mean. That's not the problem. I picked up my purse. Catherine started to say something else, but I was already walking to the door. Wait. Joan, don't leave like this. I turned back. We just did, Catherine. You told me exactly who you are. You're the one making this into a huge drama. You just told an 8-year-old boy he's not worthy of being in your wedding because his face doesn't match your aesthetic. He'll get over it. Kids are resilient. Those 4 words. He'll get over it. I left. I drove home in silence. Thomas was at a play date. I sat at the kitchen table and stared at the wall for an hour, and then I opened my laptop and started making calls. If you're still watching this, if you haven't hit subscribe yet, let me ask you something. How many stories about children being excluded, hurt, or rejected have you watched and then just scrolled past? How many times have you felt something but done nothing? These stories matter. They need to be heard. They need to reach people who are living through this right now. And if you care even a little bit about that, you'll hit the subscribe button. Because if you don't, you're telling me that this story, that Thomas, that every child who's been made to feel less than, doesn't matter enough for one single click. So subscribe, or admit you don't actually care. Here's what Catherine didn't know. Here's what nobody in the family knew. 3 years before Catherine's engagement to Rosewood Estate, the beautiful historic venue where she'd booked her dream wedding, nearly went bankrupt. The owner, Margaret Chen, was my tax client and had become a friend. I had money by then. My tax firm had grown beyond what I'd ever imagined, so I offered to invest. 40% ownership in exchange for keeping Rosewood afloat. Margaret could keep running it. I'd be a silent partner. I didn't need recognition. I just didn't want to watch something beautiful die when I had the power to save it. I became a 40% owner of Rosewood Estate. Margaret was able to pay off her debts, renovate, reopen. The business recovered and became the most sought-after venue in the region. When Catherine came to me excited about finding the perfect venue, I realized it was Rosewood. When she told me about the family rate, I knew that was me. Margaret had given Catherine the discount because I'd asked her to, as my wedding gift to my sister. Catherine never knew. She thought she'd gotten lucky. She booked it, put down her deposit, started planning her dream wedding at a venue she could only afford because I'd made it possible. And now she was using that venue to celebrate a marriage she was starting by excluding my son. I sat at my kitchen table and did the math. If I withdrew my partnership, Margaret would have to honour the existing contract. But Catherine's family rate would disappear. The venue fee would jump from $35,000 to $72,000. $37,000 more than they'd budgeted. They couldn't afford it. Catherine had told me everything while planning. They'd stretched to afford $35,000. They'd have to cancel. Find another venue with 6 weeks to go, or downgrade to something they could actually afford. I could do that. I had that power. One phone call and Catherine's perfect day would implode. The question was whether I should. I thought about Thomas, about the way he practiced walking slowly in our living room, imagining himself carrying rings down an aisle, about how excited he was to be part of her special day. I thought about the text messages I'd seen over Catherine's shoulder. The family group chat. He's sweet, but you know the photos. And someone responding with a frowning emoji. They'd been talking about my son like he was a problem to be managed. And Catherine had been part of that conversation. She'd seen those messages. She hadn't defended him. I picked up my phone and called Margaret. She answered on the second ring. Joan, how are you? I'm good, Margaret. Listen, I need to talk to you about my partnership in Rosewood. Her voice changed, went careful. Okay, what's going on? I need to withdraw my support for the Hayes-Morrison wedding. Silence. Then that's your sister's wedding, I know. Joan, if you withdraw the partnership discount, her rate goes up to full price. That's 37,000 more. I know. Can I ask why? She excluded my son from the wedding party because she said his birthmark would ruin her photos. Margaret breathed out slowly. Oh, Joan, I'm not asking you to cancel the wedding. Honour the existing contract. But I need to withdraw my partnership support. The family rate goes away. You're well within your rights, Margaret said slowly. But this is going to destroy her wedding. 6 weeks out, there's no way she can come up with 37,000 more. She'll have to downgrade or cancel. I know. Are you sure? I'm sure. Oh, okay. I'll send the paperwork. Thank you, Margaret. Joan, I'm sorry you have to do this. Me too. I hung up. Thomas would be home in an hour. I'd make him dinner, help him with homework, read him a story. And tomorrow, Catherine would get a call from Rosewood Estate. I didn't feel victorious. I felt hollowed out. The paperwork arrived via email an hour later. I signed it while Thomas ate fish sticks. I sent it back while he brushed his teeth. By the time I tucked him into bed, it was done. The call came faster than I expected. Margaret phoned Catherine the next morning. I know because Catherine called me at 9:15, and I could hear in her voice that her world had just collapsed. Joan, her voice was shaking. Did you know about this? I was at my office. Know about what? Rosewood's called. They're saying my venue fee is going up. Massively up. They're saying the partnership that was giving us, the discount, is being withdrawn. Did you know about this? I could have lied. Instead, I told the truth. I'm the partner, Catherine. I own 40% of Rosewood Estate. The family rate you got was me subsidizing your wedding. And yesterday I withdrew my support. The silence lasted so long I thought she'd hung up. Then what? You heard me. You own? You've been? What are you talking about? 3 years ago, Rosewood was going bankrupt. I invested to save it. Margaret gave you the discount because I asked her to, as my wedding gift. And now I'm taking it back. You're taking it back. Her voice went flat. You're sabotaging my wedding. I'm withdrawing financial support from a wedding being used to exclude my son. Because he's not in the wedding party? Are you insane? You're going to ruin my entire wedding because you can't handle me making a decision about my own wedding party? You told him he'd ruin your photos, Catherine. I never said that to him. You said it to me. And that's close enough. Joan, this is my wedding. The day I've been planning for 2 years, and you're going to destroy it over this? Over a kid not being in a 5-minute processional? Over you excluding your nephew because his face doesn't meet your aesthetic standards? Her voice rose, cracked. You're being so unfair. I have a right to have my wedding look the way I want it to look. Every bride has that right. And you're punishing me for it like some kind of petty tyrant. I'm removing my financial support from an event where my son isn't welcome. He is welcome. He's invited. He can come. He's just not in the fucking wedding party because I wanted the kids to match. Say it, Catherine. Say why doesn't it match? Silence. Say it. Say the real reason. Stop it, Joan. His birthmark. That's what you mean. His face. You don't want him in your photos because you're ashamed of how he looks. I'm not ashamed. Then why isn't he in your wedding party? Because, her voice broke. She was crying now. Because I want my wedding to be beautiful. I want my photos to be perfect. I've wanted this since I was a little girl, and I've spent so much money, and I just want it to look the way I always imagined. And I'm sorry if that makes me a terrible person, but it's true. I want everything to be perfect and coordinated and beautiful. And yes, his birthmark is very visible. And yes, it will stand out in photos. And I don't want that. I don't want to look at my wedding photos for the rest of my life and see something that doesn't fit the vision I had. There it was. The truth, finally. Thank you for saying it out loud, I said. Now you understand why I can't pay for those photos. Joan, please. Please don't do this. The wedding is in 6 weeks. I can't come up with $37,000 more. We'll have to cancel everything. It'll be destroyed, please. I'm begging you. You're going to explain to an 8-year-old that his face doesn't fit your aesthetic? In a way that doesn't hurt him? That's not fair. None of this is fair, that's the point. I'm your sister, and he's your nephew. I love him! Not enough! Fuck you, Joan. She was sobbing. Fuck you for doing this, for being this petty, for ruining the most important day of my life because your kid isn't the center of attention. It's not about attention. It's about belonging. It's about him knowing his family wants him. It's about not teaching him at 8 years old that his worth is determined by how he photographs. He'll never even know. He's 8. He doesn't understand. He'll forget about the wedding in a week. He'll get over it. But I won't, Catherine. I won't get over watching you exclude him. I won't get over you participating in a group chat where people talk about how sweet he is. But, you know, the photos. I won't get over you untagging yourself from pictures with him. I won't get over you teaching my son that his face is something to be ashamed of. I never said he should be ashamed. You don't have to say it. You're showing him. And when he's old enough to notice the pattern, it's going to break something in him that can't be fixed. So I'm fixing it now. I'm removing him from the situation entirely. He won't be at your wedding. He won't see you celebrate a marriage that started by excluding him. Because you and your perfect photos won't be part of his life anymore. Joan, please. The paperwork is signed, Catherine. It's done. You have 6 weeks to figure out a new plan. You're my sister. How can you do this to me? Because he's my son, and someone has to protect him, even if it costs me everything else. I hung up, turned off my phone, sat at my desk, staring at tax returns, and felt absolutely nothing. That's what I remember most. The emptiness. I just destroyed my sister's wedding, ended a relationship that had been the most important thing in my life for 34 years, and I felt nothing. Not triumph, not regret. Just a blank, hollow space where Catherine used to be. The fallout was immediate and nuclear. Catherine called my mother within an hour. My mother called me that evening. I didn't answer. She's left a voicemail. How could you do this to your sister? How could you be so cruel over a child not being in a wedding party? She's devastated. Her wedding is ruined because you couldn't handle a simple boundary. Call me back immediately. I deleted it. Blocked her number temporarily. My aunt called. My uncle called. My cousin Sarah sent texts that started with, "I can't believe you," and ended with, "You're dead to this family." I'd turned off my phone. Margaret called me 3 days later. "Joan, I need to tell you something about Catherine's wedding." "What happened?" "She's keeping it at Rosewood." Michael's parents offered to cover the increased cost, $37,000. They wrote the check this morning. My stomach dropped. "Oh, I thought you should know. The wedding is still happening, so my choice didn't matter. All I did was destroy my relationship with Catherine and cost Michael's parents $37,000. I'm sorry, Joan. It's fine. Thank you for letting me know." I hung up and sat very still. The wedding was still happening. Catherine was still getting her perfect day without my son in it. All I'd accomplished was proving I was exactly what she'd called me: petty, cruel, unable to handle being told no. My father called from a number I didn't recognize. "Joni, please don't hang up." "What do you want, Dad?" "I want to understand what happened." "You want to understand?" "Call Catherine and ask her why Thomas isn't in her wedding party. Ask her to explain it. Really explain it. Ask her to say out loud what she means. She says it's her wedding. Her choice. It is her choice, and this is mine. I can't stop her from excluding Thomas, but I don't have to pay for it either. The venue, though, that was vindictive." "No, Dad." Vindictive would have been cancelling her contract entirely. I could have done that. Instead, I just removed my subsidy. She's paying what everyone else pays. Michael's parents had to cover the difference. Do you know how much therapy Thomas is going to need when he's old enough to understand that his family excluded him because his face doesn't look right? He's 8, Joan. He doesn't understand any of this. He will. In 2 years, 4 years, 6, he'll be old enough to look back and notice he's not in photos, to connect the dots and understand that his aunt decided he wasn't good enough. And when that day comes, what am I supposed to tell him? Silence. She's your sister. You grew up together. You're really going to throw that away over this? I'm not throwing it away. She did, when she said those 5 words. I'm just acknowledging it. Can you come to family dinner this Sunday? Let's talk about this like adults. There's no compromise here. Either Thomas is worthy of being in the wedding party, or he isn't. What if she makes him an usher? Or has him do a reading? What if she just includes him in the thing he's been dreaming about for 6 months? I don't think she's going to budge. Then I don't think we have anything to talk about. You're being stubborn. I'm being a mother. Silence. Then my father said something I didn't expect. I don't agree with what you did, but I understand it. And I'm sorry we're all making you choose between being a good sister and being a good mother. My throat closed. Thanks, Dad. I love you, Joni. So does Catherine. She's hurt and angry, but she loves you. I know. I love her too. That's why this hurts so much. Are you coming to the wedding? No. I wish I knew how to fix this. Me too, Dad. The wedding happened. 6 weeks later, I didn't go. Thomas and I spent the day at the aquarium. He asked once why we weren't at Aunt Catherine's wedding, and I told him we had a special day planned just for us. He accepted it easily. While we walked through dim hallways watching fish swim in circles, my sister got married. The photos, I heard later, were beautiful. Magazined perfect. Every child matched perfectly, all ivory and blush, all coordinated like Catherine had dreamed. Thomas wasn't in them, neither was I. My mother sent me a photo the next day. The whole family outside Rosewood Estate. Catherine in her white dress, surrounded by everyone. I counted the faces. 27 people. Thomas and I weren't in it. That was 3 years ago. Catherine and I haven't spoken since. Not at Christmas. Not at birthdays. Not when my father had a health scare last year. We exist in the same family like ghosts, never touching, never acknowledging each other. My mother chose Catherine. She visits me twice a year, always alone, always tense with the unspoken question, are you ready to apologize yet? I'm not. My nephew Edward is 13. He knows some version filtered through Catherine's perspective. He calls me Aunt Monster when he thinks I can't hear. Michael reached out once, 6 months after the wedding. He sent an email. I need you to know I didn't understand what was happening until it was too late. By the time Catherine told me the real reason, we were too far in to change course. I'm sorry. For what it's worth, I think you were right. But being right doesn't fix this, does it? I wrote back one sentence. No, it doesn't. My father meets me once a month at a diner 2 towns over. He hugs Thomas, asks about school, slips me cash I don't need but accept. We don't talk about Catherine. We talk about safe things. When he leaves, I watch him drive back to a house where my name isn't mentioned, where Thomas's photos don't hang on the refrigerator. Thomas is 11 now. He doesn't remember asking to be ring bearer. He doesn't know what I sacrificed, but he's starting to notice other things. Like how we never go to Grandma's for holidays. Like how we used to have big family gatherings, and now it's just us. Last week he asked, do Lily and Edward not like me anymore? They like you, sweetheart. Sometimes families just grow apart. He accepted that. But the questions are going to get harder. Eventually, I'll have to tell him some version of the truth, and I'll have to decide how much he gets. Do I tell his aunt excluded him because of his birthmark? Do I explain I destroyed that wedding to protect him, or do I lie? Let him believe the family just drifted. I don't know yet. What I do know is this. He's safe. He's growing up where his worth isn't determined by how he looks. He's surrounded by people who love him unconditionally. We've built a chosen family. It's smaller, but it's solid, real, based on actual love, not obligation or appearance. Sometimes I see posts from Catherine. Perfect family photos, Lily and Edward growing up. Evidence of a life moving forward without us. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I'd made a different choice. If I'd swallowed my anger, let Thomas be excluded, shown up with a smile, preserved the family. Would we all be together now? Probably. But Thomas would have learned something else. That family is conditional. That love has limits. That sometimes you make yourself smaller to fit into other people's pictures. I couldn't teach him that, even if it cost me everything. 3 years later, I still don't know if I'm a hero or a monster. My nephew thinks I'm a monster. My mother thinks I'm cruel. Catherine probably thinks I'm both. My son thinks I'm his mom, the person who protects him, the person who chooses him. And maybe that's enough, because once you draw lines, you can't undraw them. Once you make a choice this big, you live with it. Forever. You don't get to test the other path. You just have to trust that the choice you made was the right one. I chose Thomas. I chose protecting my son over preserving my family. I chose making sure he never had to know his aunt thought his face would ruin her photos. The cost was everyone else, and I'd make the same choice again. Every time. But I'll carry Edward calling me Aunt Monster for the rest of my life. I'll carry my mother's disappointment. I'll carry the ghost of the sister I used to have. I'll carry all of it. The cost and the consequence and the question that has no answer. Was there another way? I still don't know. But I know this. Thomas is 11. He's thriving. He has friends who love him. He's confident and funny and kind. He doesn't know yet that half his family chose aesthetics over him. And every day I can protect him from knowing that is a day I won. That's my story. One phone call, 47 seconds. A family fractured. A son protected. Was there any other way? If you know the answer, I'm still listening. If this story hit you, if you've ever faced an impossible choice between protecting one person and losing everyone else, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you made it this far without subscribing to the final chapter, do it now. These stories need to be told. They need to reach people living through this right now. One click. That's all it takes to help these stories find the people who need them most. This is the final chapter. This is where the story ends. Not with reconciliation, not with apologies, just with the choice, the consequence, and the quiet knowledge that sometimes love looks like destruction. I'm Joan, and 3 years later I'm still not sure if I'm the hero or the villain. But I'm absolutely certain I'm Thomas's mother. And that was always going to matter more than being Catherine's sister. Thank you for being here for the final chapter. Subscribe, share this story, and remember, sometimes the bravest thing you can do is protect someone at the cost of everything else, even when it makes you the villain in everyone else's story. Even when there's no way to know if you were right. Even when the only person who'll ever thank you is too young to understand what you sacrificed. That's love. That's protection. That's the choice. And 3 years later, I'm still living with it every single day. Thank you for listening.